Welcome to the Galileo March monthly update. I'm joined by Stienemarié, and it's been a kind of an interesting start to the year. It seems like we could say that for every month of every year at the moment. But Stine, we've just come through a budget time, so I think it's an important thing. Everybody focuses on it. The media talks about it incessantly, and so maybe we should just explain to our clients what our thoughts are.
Yeah, morning, Warren. Nice to be back. So we had the budget meeting last week by the finance minister, and I think it was always going to be a little bit of a balancing act, being in an election year where everything is always a little bit crazy, but also with the high debt levels that we have and the high servicing costs to those debt levels. So I think what actually is needed is nice economic and good economic growth, and that's very challenging with the load shedding stages that we have, as well as Transnet and the ports that are still an issue. So those are things that actually has to be addressed first, and the budget then will look a lot better, I think. And then also fiscal discipline. So all the non-interest costs that the country has to be well looked at and really well managed. So if you look at the specifics of the budgets, I think the positive is that taxes weren't increased, but they also weren't adjusted for inflation. So that just actually means that inflation will do the job. And if you do have an increase in your salary, that might bump you up into a higher tax bracket, and actually you will end up paying a little bit more in taxes. The medical tax credits has remained as is for now, but again, it hasn't been adjusted for inflation, and the fuel levy is also the same. So where will taxes come from then? I think, as we've seen every year, the sin taxes has been escalated quite a bit. And then other income is that the finance minister is taking about a third from the gold and forex reserve. So that is something to keep an eye on. I think in the short term, it really helps those debt servicing costs to lower that. But it is a short term solution and not something that can be done every single year. And then I think something that really affects our industry is the two-pot system. So it has been talked about a lot. It will now be implemented from the 1st of September of this year. And what that means is that of your retirement savings, essentially one third will go into a savings pot and two thirds will go into a retirement pot. So that one third in the savings pot, you can have access to once a year to make a withdrawal, and that will be taxed at your marginal tax rate. So the higher your personal income and tax rate, the more tax you will pay on that withdrawal. And the two thirds that goes into the retirement pot has then to be left until retirement. So preserved until retirement to kind of sustain you in retirement then. So I think we can look at this in two ways. It is good to have some access to capital. I think we especially saw that in times like COVID, where people had to either resign or go into debt as they didn't have any access to capital. But we also should just be careful that this isn't your go-to place to access capital. You should still have your emergency fund and other sources of liquid capital that you access. And this really should be a last resort to kind of not go into debt and rather than have access to some capital.
Yeah, I must say, maybe two comments there. One, it's certainly, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that they'll now be able to access capital that they've had in their retirement funds in the past. And so the important point here is it's about future contribution. So from the time that this two-part system actually kicks off, that one third or the savings part portion will be where you can access money. So it's not about your history. So if you've built up 10 million rand, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your view, you can't access that money. It's about the future. And I think I think it's positive from the point of view that a lot of people under contribute to retirement funds because they can't access any of the money, and so if this has the effect of enabling or creating an environment where more people will be more willing to contribute some money to their retirement funds than they were in the past, I think that's very good. And it will certainly stop the bad behavior that we've seen over decades, where people will just quit a job without having a new job, and the only reason for quitting the job is so that they can access their retirement funds, and then they give away 20% or half of it depending on their tax rates to settle some sort of debt. And then they sit without a job going into the future. And I think for me, that's catastrophic economic behavior, both at an individual level and for for the country as a whole. So the fact that we now have some kind of compulsory preservation of money, I think, is a very good thing. And unfortunately, when you look at the world, the countries that have got very good savings cultures, they have one thing in common, is that their governments force them to save. And where you've got bad savings cultures, it's because the government just allows you to do as you wish. And so, sometimes we have to be kind of encouraged by law to behave well. And unfortunately, that's a human nature thing. So some people will be upset about this, but I think it's a very good move. It's long overdue, in fact. And then, Stine, I think you're right about the budget. Actually the only big solution that our country needs is growth. We need to grow the economy much faster, 2 or 3 times faster than it's growing now, so that we can earn more tax, so that we can pay down debt and get more people employed and working in our country. So, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Warren.
In terms of March, we've got now the other thing that happened, I guess, in the month of February, but it will become a political reality in March, is the election date is announced. And I think elections are always a source of concern for everybody, whether you're South African or American. I suspect maybe not for once, but certainly this time around, the Americans must be panicking about their election much more than we're panicking about ours. But I think just maybe as a comment there, that elections. I think in 2024, something like 50 to 70% of the world's population will go into an election. And that's a huge proportion of people around the world, and possibly in some of the big kind of deciding countries, there will be the most kind of unpredicted events. We're not certain in South Africa whether the ANC gets to 50% or not. In America, no one's certain what will happen with Trump's legal problems. And then, if he does, get to contest the election as the Republican candidate, will he beat Biden? It was extremely close last time around. And so that's an unknown. And so I think, when you've got those kinds of big events, it's tempting to make predictions. It's tempting to sit on the sidelines and wait, and say, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to earn some interest and wait for things to kind of settle down. The problem there is that when you make an investment prediction, which is what you're doing, sitting on the sidelines earning interest is an investment prediction. And not investing is another investment prediction. So what you're doing is you're getting some certainty. You're earning some nice interest. I know rates are high now, and that's great, but you're paying a lot more tax than you would have done. And then secondly, you don't know what the outcome will be. The outcome might be catastrophic. Whatever the election outcome is, it might be that stock markets fall over, and then you'll feel like a genius for having sat on the sidelines. But if the markets love the outcome, and they shoot up in response to the election, you won't have time to get your money invested. So for me, I think if there is an election coming in your country, anywhere in the world, and you've got to invest a lump sum, rather phase it in the months leading up to the election, and then for a few months thereafter, and try not to kind of wait for things all the time, because they never work the way you think. So if election outcomes never work the way you think, what can you do, Stine, to kind of manage your money so that you don't get stuck in all this emotional turmoil?
So I think, as you said, going into an election year, it is going to be very volatile. There's a lot of noise out there. There will be a lot of nastiness from politicians, and there will be a lot going out in the news, negative and positive altogether. So I think Yolanda touched on it in the previous recording, where you are able to automate some of your decisions, do that. And that will be things like setting up debit orders for retirement funds or tax-free investments, so that at the end of the tax year, you don't have to scramble to get those things done. As part of your broader financial plan, if you need to take money offshore, chat to your financial planner, decide on a strategy, whether you're phasing that out or doing it at once. Commit to those actions and then follow that, rather than waiting for the perfect time and the perfect exchange rate. So those are some examples. And then I think, because it's going to be so volatile and a lot happening, try and slow things down a little bit. So if you do read something that is quite upsetting, or you feel like you need to do something, just sleep on it, review it in the morning, chat to your financial planner. Please reach out to us and set up meetings, and we can chat through it. It sometimes does feel counterproductive to do nothing, and we want to do something. We are all human, and it is going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride this year. But most of the time, it is better to actually just sit tight through this volatility and not do rash decisions based on things that's happening out there.
I 100% agree. And maybe just to add one more, which is, please get off the WhatsApp groups. We get a lot of clients asking us, doing exactly what you've asked them to do, is that they'll forward us a message that they've received on WhatsApp from their, best friend twice removed. And when we look at it, it's absolute garbage. So unfortunately, WhatsApp groups from your friends is not a source of news. It's usually a source of nonsense and very disturbing emotionally when you're kind of getting inundated with this stuff all the time. And all it's doing is creating fear. It's not rational. It doesn't help you at all. So, I would say limit your social media consumption, especially, whether it's WhatsApp or X or Twitter or, Facebook, whatever, just understand that those platforms are designed to generate an emotional response. And unfortunately, the best emotional responses are ones that create fear and loathing, and not calm, content, long-term thinking. So, if you want, rather read, kind of weekly or monthly magazines, especially online nowadays. Nowadays, you can get pretty good access to some great journalism. But following stuff day to day, or even minute to minute on the news channels now is just a waste of time. So protect yourself from that kind of stuff. You don't need it. It's not going to change your life. It will only make it worse. It will never help. And then, as Stini says, if times are stressing you out still, then please reach out to us and chat. Most likely, I can tell you what we're going to tell you, which is do nothing. Don't change your plan. We've got a strategy that deals with volatile times, including elections. We don't know what the outcome will be, but we've built your plan to cater for that. So I just think long-term thinking is never encouraged by short-term garbage like WhatsApp groups and social media. And just if it's one thing I could wish for everybody is get off that stuff and watch how your life improves. Stini, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to say that we haven't covered?
No, that's all from my side. Thank you very much, Warren. Nice to chat to you again.
Great, thanks, Stini. That was an impressive session. I know you, along with some of our colleagues, hate doing these, and so I enjoyed the interaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Warren. See you soon.